Settling into a comfortable meditation posture. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze, turning the attention inward. And it can be helpful to take some time just connecting with the body, relaxing the facial muscles, the jaw, the eyes. Releasing the shoulders if you're holding through there. Softening the belly. Just a sense of the body settling into its place, into a balanced and comfortable posture, and into a sense of letting go. Letting go is really at the heart of the Buddhist practice and the Buddhist project. And we let go through the body, through the mind, through the feelings. But very often, the holding is reflected in the body. Sometimes the mental or emotional clinging is manifesting in the body. So it becomes a doorway into all the levels of letting go. So as we move our attention through the body, then we can open to a broader awareness of the whole body, from going from the particulars to the whole general experience of the body. You can also notice sound. Though each of us in our own environment, external sounds, but also internal sounds. When we listen closely, what do you hear? Feeling the breath moving in the body. And is there anything happening on the felt level, emotional or energetic level? And breathing with that as well, breathing into that. So a sense of feeling, but feeling with the breath. You know, the breath keeps us in the present moment, and it also keeps the body soft and open. When we become tense or agitated, often the breath shuts down, tightens up. If we can be more simple, not caught up in our thoughts, and we can start to really enjoy the breath, just the smoothness and gentleness of the breath. When the mind is stirred up, it can be hard to sense this subtle feeling, this subtly pleasant experience of breathing. But if we can settle a bit, then the breath becomes a lovely, flowing experience. And still the thoughts will arise, and just allowing them to pass through rather than getting caught on the kind of train of thoughts. But whatever moment, at whatever point we realize we're thinking, we just acknowledge that and come back to the breath, come back to the body. If you're able to get to a point where things do quiet down a bit, where the breath really becomes your main focus. See if you can tune into the changing aspect of everything you're experiencing. The breath, of course, is changing constantly in and out. Sometimes deeper breath, sometimes more shallow. Each breath unique. But this change is also happening on the audible level, sounds. If you listen to the inner sound, like a stream flowing, moving, then it's also happening on the level of the nervous system, the whole body, really, the heart beating, the blood flowing. So we start to see that we're not focusing on a thing. We're not stopping the world, even when it gets very quiet and still. We're watching this flow. And we are this flow. That which is watching is also flowing. All right. So, yeah, back to burning desire, and I am on the beginning of the part one, Dharma God, and describing being at a Spirit Rock family retreat where I took my daughter to for many years each summer. And for many years, Ajahn Amaro was there. There's usually a monastic. And in the afternoons, he would have a meeting in the meditation hall with whatever parents wanted to meet with him while the kids were with their groups. And just people would grab chairs and sit in a circle around Ajahn Amaro, which, any opportunity to sit with a really experienced monk and wise teacher like that is really a treat. And they were very kind of wide open conversations, and the mix of people could be quite broad. And on this particular day, there was a grandmother there who really had no background with Buddhism. And so she asked this, sort of classic question: is there a God in Buddhism? And Ajahn Amaro said Buddhism is all about God, which I found a very satisfying answer and a very striking and surprising answer, and one that some years later, well, at some point, he read this manuscript, I guess when I was working on it, because I remembered he read One Breath at a Time, but I didn't remember him reading this. But in my acknowledgments, I say he went over much of this manuscript, but I remember him saying to me at one point, "Did I say that?" And I was like, "Oh, come on, man. Like, it was like a really important thing, don't like back out on me now." But he did say it, and a very, surprising thing for a Buddhist monk to say. And I immediately, kind of contradict him in the text here, where I say, certainly this wasn't the conventional understanding of Buddhism's relationship to the God idea. More typical is Walpola Rahula in What the Buddha Taught. That's the name of the book, What the Buddha Taught, says that the idea of God is a human construction. And according to Buddhism, our ideas of God and soul are false and empty. I find myself agreeing with both Amaro and Rahula. The distinction, I think, is between common ideas of what the word God means and a more mature viewpoint. Buddhadasa Bhikkhu talked about this distinction, quote, "As long as people insist that God is a person in the conventional sense of people language, we can say that they will not know the real God." So that, of course, brings us to the question of what the real God is, but we'll work on that. So Buddhadasa talks about God being nature and the laws of nature, that which exists, and the rules that govern that which exists. Step 2 in the 12-step tradition calls God a power greater than ourselves. The laws of nature are clearly this: powers beyond our control. Buddhadasa rejected the idea that some religions are theistic and others non-theistic. He said that some religions personify God and others don't, but that the essence of God was not to be found in the, quote, outer shell and form of those religions, unquote, but in the universal truths that religions share. He said that I have some more Buddhadasa handy, I think, where yeah, right. He says, every religion has something that can be called God, but some religions talk about their God only in terms of Dharma language. Thus, it appears those religions have no God, and so they are classified as non-theistic religions. Another type of, and so Buddhism and Jainism are religions of this type. And I guess Taoism probably as well. Another group of religions mostly uses easily understandable conventional language when talking about God, and so they are classified as theistic religions. Christianity, Hinduism, and Islam are examples of this type. Religions, this is again, these are quotes from Buddhadasa Bhikkhu. Religions of this latter group have very profound things to say about God in terms of Dharma language, but they are hidden under the outer shell and form of those religions. So he's saying that theistic religions also have Dharma in them, but you get kind of it's concealed in a sense. The classification of religions into two groups, non-theistic and theistic, is a superficial classification that does not touch the real essence or meaning of religion. I came upon, I have some, this was from the notes that I used to use when I taught a lot about on this topic, which was, around the time when I was writing and publishing this book. And I was drawing somewhat from Karen Armstrong, her book, A History of God. She says, the personal God has helped monotheists to value the sacred and inalienable rights of the individual and to cultivate an appreciation of human personality. The Judeo-Christian tradition has thus helped the West to acquire the liberal humanism it values so highly. The personal God reflects an important religious insight that no supreme value can be less than human. Yet, a personal God can become a grave liability. And I sort of make my own comments. Personal God winds up reflecting human prejudice, supporting sexism, war, can seem callous and cruel, and can make us accept things that are fundamentally unacceptable. It can encourage judgment, condemnation, and marginalization. Have you noticed? Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to go, this is, gets, very heady in a way here, I suppose. I mean, I hope you find it interesting. I find it interesting, but it's not really the final sort of goal of this exploration, which really to me is ultimately about finding out how to really make change or be in harmony with the Dharma. And that begins with this sort of premise that the Dharma can kind of fulfill the role of God in a typical religious relationship, whereby one turns to God for guidance and support and wisdom. And that's certainly what we can get from the Dharma. And so it's really more a question then of exploring the Dharma and seeing how to do that. I think it also becomes interesting to think of the Dharma, to think of our relationship to the Dharma as having the weight of a Christian's or Muslims or relationship to God. Like you think of that relationship as having a lot of weight, like, oh, like God is so powerful, and like, that people are afraid of God, or they pray to God to like heal them. And there's just this sense of power that I think typically Buddhists don't think more of the Dharma as this sort of like, okay, this is the stuff that's the Dharma that I should follow. But they don't think of it as something that's so weighty and so heavy that I should really be in awe of it and take it so seriously that I could think like, oh, I don't want to cross the Dharma. I don't want to, do something undharmic because then I'll go to hell, sort of thing, But really, that's right. Depends how you define hell, but the Dharma really does point to this kind of reality that we live in, and that we can choose to acknowledge and try to be in harmony with, or that we can choose to ignore. But whatever we choose to do, it has the same power. It's going to have that power whether we agree to it or not, whether we believe in it or not, whether we pray to it or not, whether we actively try to engage it. So I think it's a good idea to join up with the Dharma, So let me see if there's more from this section that I want to talk about. I have notes as well as the book in front of me. Let's see. I have the note that I pretty much have to read this whole section in common. I don't know. Okay, really? I don't know. I don't feel quite the same way today as I did when I made those notes. So I will read a little bit more, though. While it's true that the meditative experience is not intellectual, it's also not anti-intellectual. The spiritual life recognizes the limits of the intellect. We see its role in life, but we don't see it as the only way of understanding the world. If the true religious believer thinks that she knows all the answers and the skeptic rejects all faith, then the spiritual seeker is somewhere in between, don't know, open to possibilities. The spiritual experience isn't one of filling ourselves up with either religious or intellectual beliefs, but of emptying ourselves so that we can experience what is directly unfiltered. This is what the Buddha taught, or what the Buddha did, and what he taught. He too rejected the religious notions of his time. He dismissed the Brahmanic rituals as empty and missing the essence of spiritual truth, and he wasn't satisfied with the mystic teachings that could only offer temporary respite from samsara, the round of suffering. The Buddha applied a penetrating intellect to the problem, and he applied a penetrating practice. Only by combining the two could he uncover the basic problem that held back all spiritual seekers, the persistent craving behind our suffering. Seeing suffering and understanding its cause led him to the solution, simply put, letting go. The Eightfold Path that he taught then was a formula for learning to let go in all aspects of life. What we can see in the Buddhist journey and in the journeys of all spiritually developed people is that skepticism is an essential part of the path, but one that can energize and inspire us. However, it can also hinder us if we see it not as a place from which to explore, but rather as a destination. To return to the question, does Buddhism have a God? The answer is, it depends. And I'm really making a stand here. It depends on what you call God. If you feel bound to the mythic version of the Abrahamic tradition of the dominant Western religions, Islam and Judaism and Christianity, then of course Buddhism doesn't have that God, since it didn't grow out of that tradition. But if you are open to the possibility that all religions are essentially looking for truth and that the ultimate truth is God, then Buddhism certainly does have God. Some people will object to this definition, like the skeptics who come to Buddhism to get away from God. Any of you out there? But as Karen Armstrong points out, definitions change. That's the nature of language and the human mind. Isn't God the power behind everything? Isn't that what the Dharma is? It may take some rewiring of our cognitive processes, for instance, using the word it to refer to God. But soon we might be able to accept that God is not some bearded figure reaching out of the clouds to bring life to Adam, but something more subtle, complex, and real. I remember giving this workshop at the old Against the Stream in LA one time, and I must have read that part or read something like that, or sort of referred to like, well, the God isn't the bearded guy in the clouds, and someone, I think she came up to me after, like during a break, it was like, that's the God that's what my God is. My God is a guy up in the clouds with the beard. I was like, well, good for you. It's cool, but I think you're at the wrong workshop, so can't help you with that one. I'm not familiar with that one. Maybe I'm too familiar with that one. Anyway, so we're kind of probing now. We're kind of moving gradually into this book, and I have to confess that once again that I'm a little hesitant to go through this whole book all in one chunk. I may take some side trips onto other things from time to time, because it took 2 years to go through one breath at a time. This book wears me out a little bit. So we'll see. And who knows, 2 years is a long time. I'm fading. I don't mean in this moment. I mean in generally. That's my new way of defining old age, is fading away. It's the 14th aspect of the Anapanasati Sutta. After we realize impermanence, then there's fading away. I've been talking to some people who are fading away lately and realizing I'm one of them. So, all good things come to an end. Also, all bad things come to an end. Anyway, folks, wow. So would anyone like to say something? Join in here. Okay, Catherine, hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
I've been using it, recently, probably in the past, 6 months, instead of hear him in my translation in my head for my 12-step. And it's just so good. It just makes total sense for me. And so I'm really excited to see you have that here written down. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It just works for me. So thanks for the I don't know, the permission to use it or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right. I know. Well, it's good to know you're on a team, that you're not just a solo performer out there making up your own thing. It is interesting to say, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood it. And it's like, what? As we understood it? What do you mean? But, it just kind of blows it open in a way, takes it from this kind of, being into something more abstract, which is, I think, appropriate. So I see that Angela is filling up the chat with useful information. So if you'd rather read her chat information, certainly you should know. I mean, that I'll for a sec, Deborah, I'll just say this about Dana. I talk about Dana like once a month or once every couple of months. And, when I started this class 2 years ago, I wanted it to be casual and generally speaking, I don't like the idea of saying, okay, I'm going to present this curriculum and you're going to pay me for it, and that sort of relationship. but nonetheless, yeah, this is the tradition, and I do. Uh, Part of my income is really whatever you guys give me, and it's wonderful. I will say it's very sweet for me. I look at my Venmo account, every month, and I'm like, look, they gave me money, and it's very sweet. Even though I don't address people individually, I rarely thank people individually for dana, and just because it feels like if I start, I don't know, I feel like the dana is the thank you. So, it's like, thank you, thank you, thank you, but I do thank you, all of you, and really just appreciate that people persistently, show up and persistently go, oh, okay, I'm going to give him money again. It's like, wow, so that's really sweet. And anyway, I just wanted to mention that since I'm seeing it in here. I will also mention that we have what I'm really looking forward to, an in-person retreat, May 15th to the 20th in Northern California. We did just this week get a scholarship donation. So people who might have more of a challenge making the cost, we can help you. We generally don't give full scholarships except under very exceptional circumstances, because we like to spread out the scholarship money, and we like people to take some responsibility, some financial responsibility. There's a sort of syndrome of like full scholarship and then they don't show up, kind of thing. Oh, because there was no investment. Anyway, we're really delighted that Dan Lynch, who year after year, the last few years, has just given us money, and he had a stroke several years ago and can't come to retreats, but he gives us scholarship money. So it's, if you want to come, we can probably make it happen. So I hope that people will come. In fact, I know people will come because it's actually filling up, and we're probably going to run out of space pretty soon. So if you're interested, not to make it too hard to sell, but there you go. Okay, Deborah, hi.
Good evening, Kevin.
Hi.
I was gonna continue with what Catherine was talking about,
Yeah.
because AA is kind of changing their preambles to include men and women.
Oh, radical.
Yeah, I know. And let's not go any farther than men.
Right.
But I thought, oh, so maybe I could just be a little rebel in my next AA meeting and say the power or the care as we understand it.
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody would what they would do. So thanks for having inspired my guerrilla tactics. Thank you.
Well, I'm not here to change AA. I've always seen the work as being more like parallel to AA, because I do think there is a value in tradition and in being conservative. And as long as there are options, if everybody, if you're in a authoritarian state where there's no other option, then no, I don't support that. But given that, we do have this kind of alternative and these parallel programs now, I think it's sort of good for AA to just stay the same. I don't know why. Something does get lost. I mean, it's anyway, it's not my job. I don't have to figure it out. Thankfully, I don't have to. I'm not in charge. Good thing. Hey, Abigail. Hi.
Hi, thank you. I just had to jump in. I'm here in Eugene, Oregon, which you'd think would be a bastion of conservatism.
Wait a minute, it's a college town.
Almost everybody, almost every meeting uses gender non-specific terminology with all of the AA readings. Not when we're reading from the big book, because that would be too complicated. But even there, it's almost universal now, and it's happening very, very gradually and very easily. And I think I mentioned before that we don't use the Lord's Prayer here. Nobody that I've been to here uses the Lord's Prayer. We'd say the Serenity Prayer. And what I've done is to start the Serenity Prayer. May I have the serenity.
Yeah.
Just because may I have is what we say in our in the Buddhist language that
Right,
I've
like a
learned.
metta practice. May I be happy. May you be happy. Yeah.
And nobody notices unless I say about it. So that's a really easy change to make. And it's, at first it was difficult to make that translation all the time. I think it was very hard, but it's becoming so much easier, and I'm not alone, and we are not alone.
Yeah.
Really grateful for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have to rewrite the big book. We just have to
Right.
say it out loud.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I actually stumble when I try to do the Serenity Prayer like that, because I'm not sure where I pick up the may, because I want to go like, may I grant the serenity? And then it's like, no, that's not it. May I have the serenity? And then I'm like, may I have the what, sir? It's just my brain.
Think of it as a rhythm. Just change the meter, put the words in a different measurement. It'll work.
I was with a group on Wednesday that invited me to speak, and an old friend of mine was in there who's fading, and he said, well, I have what do I have? And one of the other people was like, dementia. And he was like, oh yeah, dementia. I have dementia. He was telling me he had dementia. And I was like, wow, okay. Anyway, I don't know why I bring that up, but it was like, it's like, I have dementia, but I forgot that I had it. Of course you did. Why would you remember? Anyway, folks, yes.
Anyway,
Not fade away. What?
the news is good from AA.
The news is good from AA. Thank you. Oh yeah, sorry, I went off into dementia.
There we go. And yeah, at least when I remember it.
Yeah, I'm not active in AA these days. I go to the meetings that people invite me to speak at, basically, because it's just not happening for me. And that's people used to ask me all the time, do you still go to meetings? I was like, yeah, I still go to meetings. I have not been going since. I don't like being on Zoom, other than if I'm teaching, it's different, but I don't like listening to other people on Zoom. Confessions. Angela, would you mark that and delete that from the recording, please? We don't want that to be heard by the universe. Maybe we'll have to delete this whole thing. Anyone else have anything to offer tonight? Please share, step in, save me. Oh, sure. You guys are a lot of help. Oh, raised hand, an actual raised hand.
Yeah.
Julia, hi.
I'll say something. I don't know what I'm going to say, but my
Sorry.
sponsor and I read your books. We study the 12 steps, and she goes to AA, and I do some AA, but
Good.
she's been sober 36 years, I think. And
Me too.
she's been really she's been really helpful. Just studying the steps, and this whole thing about God. I don't know what's out there. I don't know what it's all about, but I do know that meditation helps me a lot, and it helps me to kind of let go of the control, that need to think that I can control things or worry about things. That's gonna, it just does me no good. And I'm coming up on 2 years, and the past 20 years, usually I would relapse around 2 years. I've been in and out. And then prior to that, it was 15 years. And
Wow.
I think a lot of it was just the environment I was in, and people weren't on board with me and maintain sobriety and that, going to meetings. But the meditation is what I keep coming back to. And I find a lot of peace. The meditation and the breath breathing helps me kind of settle down. And I don't know. I always like coming to this particular meeting and hearing what other people have to say, because I do kind of I was brought up Catholic and I kind of get confused about what I actually believe in. But I
Yeah.
just, I'm really attracted to Buddhism because it has something a little deeper that I want. And it's, AA has kept me sober through the pandemic. And I like Zoom. I really like Zoom because I'm just kind of busy, and
Yeah.
it's nice
Yeah.
to be able to kind of tune in. But
Yeah, just drop in. Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate tonight. So thanks. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Julia. First of all,
Mm.
really stay with us, stay with it. Especially it's great that you sort of are seeing like, oh, this is sort of a danger time for me. I have to be careful because it's like I've relapsed. And I think those things can be very, dangerous. Those times. So a really good time to stay close with your program, and certainly with us and with other meetings. Also, I think it's totally fine to not know what you believe. I think sometimes we get in more trouble knowing what we believe, like we can get more kind of into more of a conflict when we're trying to defend some belief or make it fit into something. It's like, that as I, had in this little passage, don't know. That's just like the great Korean Zen master San Sunim talked about don't know mind. And which is actually a really profound teaching, which is really saying ultimately that we don't know what's going to happen in the next second. We don't know. We don't really, there's so much that we don't know. And we try to like create some belief system. And, historically, people didn't know shit and they just made shit up. Like see those stars up there in the sky, those symbolize this. They have this meaning, right? And the science was like, there wasn't such a thing as science, just because people don't like to not know. There's a discomfort in that. There's the desire to know is a very powerful human tendency. And it's had a lot of benefit in that people have wound up figuring out a lot of things over time. But when we let our desire to know just lead us into deluded corners and, cults and all the things that can happen, we're worse off than if we just go like, I don't really know. Like, so, and even, people in AA can be like, well, you have to know what your higher power is. And I'm like, screw you. No, I don't. What I have to do is not drink, and then after that, I'll work on everything else, but, take care of the number one thing. And I also believe like, don't drink and don't lie, cheat and steal, kind of have your precepts down, and meditate, take care of yourself, take care of your body, take care of the people around you. What you believe about like, oh, what created the universe? I mean, like, who cares? Like when you die, that idea will be gone. So it just doesn't really have any great significance in the world. Whew. Got that out of my system. Thanks, Julia. So is that Vicky on a phone?
It is. It
Because
is.
you're narrow. You're more narrow than ordinary.
I know.
You're
I'm
losing
on a
weight.
phone.
How are you?
Oh no. Good. I've been traveling and having a great time, but and missing you. And
Where are you, if you
um,
don't mind my asking?
well, now I'm back in
Truth or Consequences?
Such a great dharmic name, don't you think?
Really, Truth or Consequences. That was a TV show, right? Truth or Consequences.
Yeah.
Or
So,
well, there was To Tell the Truth. I don't know. Anyway.
all
Go.
those truth things, right?
Yeah.
So good
Dharma.
orderly direction. When I started hearing the
Yeah.
acronyms, I was like, oh, thank heavens, good
Right. Oh, thank God, right?
organization, group, right, group of drunks, that worked really well. That's Sangha, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, good early direction, group of drunks. I heard a new one, grace over drama. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. It's
And
guidance
yeah,
of Dharma
the gift, oh, right.
or
Yeah,
gift of Dharma. Yeah.
demonstration. Yeah, so all those things are very helpful, in terms of my own recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
That's
Boy,
all you're
so
going to
glad
say?
we're
You got to
done.
say more than that. Come on.
No, that's it. We're overtime.
We are? Oh, it's 8 o'clock. Yeah.
You're
That's true.
done.
I'm done. I'm off the clock. Wow. Sweet.
Nice to see you.
Nice to
Nice
see
to
you
be
too. Take care of
Yeah,
yourself.
okay. You too.
Yeah.
That's what we do, right?
What? Take care of ourselves or take care of
Take
each other?
care of each other.
Yeah, I hope so.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been having some recovery adventures lately. I mentioned this, that I got invited to speak to my old group in LA, that it has like an alumni meeting. So that was pretty sweet. There's been a lot of like people returning into my life, like my old best friend from when I was 12 kind of got in touch with me recently. So I'm not sure. I hope there's no meaning to that, because anyway, thank you all for showing up for yourselves. For me, it'd be boring to talk to the screen if no one else was there. Maybe you're not even there. Maybe you're just like, bots. And I think that I'm teaching people, right? Who knows? Anyway, I shall be back on Tuesday morning. And Tuesday morning, I'm going to have to, leave right on the hour, maybe even a couple minutes early. But I'm going to suggest, if you're there, Angela or Monica, that we can just leave the room open for people to share. But I have to get out quickly. So, and that's not a bad idea for people to be able to share when I'm not around. It's probably better. There's that whole like, the teacher heard me. I can't say anything. I can't be honest. So anyway, stay safe. There is still a pandemic, in case we'd like to think it's over, but I'm personally trying to stay safe without getting irrational. My friend, the plumber, came over today, and I told him he didn't have to wear a mask in the house. So doing things like that, but not ready to go to a movie without a mask. So that's me, but everybody has their own level of risk. Anyway, end of lecture. Thank you all. Peace.